Hello there guys and welcome back to Blues Fans TV for my basically player ratings of the season, of the 19-20 season. Yes, I know we don't know for sure whether this season will be void or whether at some point later on in the year we will play the remaining games of the season, but let's just do player ratings of the season up until this point. And I know it's been a minute since you last saw me. I hope you're all good in whatever the situation in your specific countries may be. I hope you're all good and staying safe. That's very important. This video is again sponsored by OneFootball, so a massive thank you to them guys. And if you haven't already, please go down below into the description, into the video description, and download the OneFootball app via the link that is in the video description down below. It's the best football app out there. You definitely won't be regretting it, so please be sure to download it via the link in the description. But now let's just get into the video because we have a lot of players to get through. Of course, starting with the goalies, and those two are already two very interesting players to talk about, let's be honest. I will start with Kepa. Of course, he is still our first choice goalkeeper. And I also have a couple of stats for every player. I'm not, in crazy detail, but I do have a couple of stats for you. He played 33 games this season with 8 clean sheets, conceding 43 goals. But my rating for Kepa is a 5.5. I will explain it a little bit more after I've talked about Caballero, because Willy Caballero, who has played 9 games this season, 4 of them in the Premier League, only kept 1 clean sheet and conceded 14 goals, and for me gets a 5 out of 10 rating for the entire season. Now, for me, I would actually argue that they have been similarly as good, but because Caballero only did it in 9 games, 4 of them in the Prem, and Kepa did it over 33 games, I think it's more difficult. It's more difficult to keep a similar level of performance over that many games compared to just 9 games like Caballero or 4 games in the league. Hence why I'm giving Kepa that half a point more. And I also think a lot of the criticism of Kepa was way too harsh. I know a lot of people will give him, I don't know, a 4, 4.5 or something, or even lower. That's not fair in my opinion. I think keepers in the modern game are just very reliant on their defenders. I think some of the criticism has certainly been way too harsh. And now getting into the centre-backs, of course, 4 centre-backs, and starting off with Zuma. Now he has played 33 games all season, scored 1 goal, assisted 1 goal, and also scored 1 own goal. And for me, he gets an overall rating over the season of 6.5. Of course, he was played more and played a more crucial role earlier in the season, but he still played by far the most games out of all of our centre-backs. And I think he had a pretty decent season. Very good at some points, had some poor games now and again, but I think overall he had a pretty decent season. And similarly, it is for Andreas Christensen, who's only played 20 games all season actually. No goals, no assists, no own goals either though. And for me, also gets a 6.5 out of 10. To be honest, I'm not sure. I was kind of debating whether to drop him down to a 6 because, he's just played a lot less than Zuma. But whenever Christensen's played, even though he has the lack of physicality that sometimes lets him down, he is generally a really, really good defender. His positioning is really good. I like what he does. I like the way he tries to intercept the ball. His reading of the game is really good as well. I thought he had a decent season when he got the chance to play. Coming to Fikayo Tomori, who's played 22 games all season with 2 goals. Obviously, that screamer away at Wolves. 1 assist and no own goals again. For me, gets the highest ratings of the highest rating of the 4 centre backs with a 7 out of 10. Of course, some of that is because it was his debut season in the Premier League, which gives him a little boost in the whole situation. But I just thought whenever he got the chance, he played really, really well. I thought he had a good season overall. He's very, very promising, really, really fast, good on the ball, better than people give him credit for. Sometimes, when I say good on the ball, I mean his passing is good, but sometimes he still takes a little bit too long and makes, just errors of judgment really that cost him possession or something and that lead to the chance for the opposition, which is why his rating isn't higher, but I think a 7 out of 10 is pretty fair from my end. And then coming to Antonio Rudiger, which I know a lot of people will disagree with, 18 games this season, of course, was pretty much injured by that 1 half against Wolves until just before Christmas. Scored 2 goals, both away at Leicester. 0 assists and also scored 1 own goal, and for me gets the lowest rating out of the 4 centre-backs with a 6 out of 10. I didn't think it was that impressive. When he came in and when he was meant to be that leader to help us out in certain situations, I don't think he did it quite as well as he should have done, and also his positioning is just too poor in my opinion to give him a much better rating than that. But then coming to the fullbacks, and of course there is again 4 fullbacks, starting it off with Mr. Consistent himself, Cesar Azpilicueta, 37 games all season, 4 goals, 3 assists and 0 own goals. From me, he gets a rating of 7 out of 10 over the season. I think a lot of things come into it. First of all, he's played 3 positions. He's played at centre-back, he's played at right-back, and he's played at left-back. Especially when Reece James came into the team and both Emerson and Alonso were struggling, some injuries, some poor form, and he had to help out at left-back again. And he, stood in and for the most part was pretty decent. Of course, he had some shockers. Of course, he had some poor games in there. But I think the consistency level, the leadership level that he does show, I think overall gives him a 7 out of 10. Of course, leave me all of your thoughts. If you disagree with anything I say, leave me all of your thoughts on it down in the comment section below. Coming to Reece James, one of the surprises and the standout players of of the season with 26 appearances, 9 coming off the bench though, 2 goals and 3 assists, no own goals. And for me, an overall rating of 8 out of 10. I thought it was very impressive. I thought when he started playing more regularly, I thought our attacking play improved drastically. Even though our attackers didn't always finish the chances he served up for them, I thought our general attacking play improved significantly. He had that absolute shock against Bayern Munich, I know, but generally, other than that, I don't think he had a poor game. And I thought it was just brilliant. To be honest, I could argue even giving him an 8.5. But maybe there weren't quite enough starts in there to warrant that. I'm not 100% sure, but I could certainly argue an 8.5 as well. Coming to Emerson at the left-back position, 18 appearances all season, 0 goals, 1 assist. And for me, gets a 5 out of 10, rating for the season. Now, before his injury, which was early in the season, I know, but before that injury, I thought it was brilliant. And I would give him like an 8 or 7.5 out of 10 before that. But after that, he didn't play very well, had to come off after 30 minutes away at Arsenal because he was just that poor, and that just lowers him down to 5 out of 10. I think, that's what I'm going to go with. And coming to Marcos Alonso, 20 appearances all season, 4 goals and 3 assists. And I was debating this one for a while. You guys know that I'm not the biggest fan of Marcos Alonso, and I was not sure, do I give him do I give him the same as Emerson? Do I give him a little bit more? In the end, I decided to give him 5.5 out of 10. I thought that was kind of fair overall. Before the recent run of form that he had, I would have given him a 4, if that. But because that recent run of form, because of that winner against, or not winner, but that goal against Spurs and, a couple of other important goals in there as well, it just raised it for me. I'm still not sure between 5 and 5.5, but I'm going to give him 5.5 out of 10 for now. Again, let me know what you guys think. But then coming to the centre midfielders, which of course is the position with, the most players in one goal, basically. Starting it off with Jorginho, the vice-captain, who's played 37 games all season, scoring 7 goals, 6 of them coming from the penalty spot, and with 2 assists. But overall, for me, he still gets a 7 out of 10 rating for the season. I know some of you would disagree, but, that's just me. Before his recent run of form, that was poor. Also due to just playing in the wrong formation. That's just not suited to him, especially when he's not next to N'Golo Kante. Before that, I would have given him an 8 out of 10, but 7 out of 10 overall. I think, in my opinion, is fair. He was really, really good earlier in the season. Picked up too many yellow cards, I agree, but I think 7 out of 10 is fair for Jorginho. Coming to N'Golo Kante, the birthday boy of the day as I'm recording this. 22 appearances all season, a lot of injuries. Obviously, started the season injured, even though kind of played, but then he got injured again and played and then got injured again. But 3 goals, 0 assists, and for me gets an overall rating of 6 out of 10. Some of you might think that's harsh. Some of you might think that's not even harsh enough, especially compared to how we usually talk about his performances. But the thing is, in big games, I would give him like an 8.10. Like, he was brilliant in most of the big games. Whenever we played Liverpool, when we played Man City, scoring goals. Like, he was brilliant in all of those games, pretty much. But then against pretty much every other team, in my opinion, it was more of a 5 out of 10. I just said this to Matisse on Twitter. When we try to break down the low block, and Lampard plays him as pretty much a number 10 or a very attacking number 8, he's more of a hindrance than an 8 to our attacking play and trying to break a low block of an opponent down. And I just don't think that helps, and I think that's a little bit of a problem. Would that be better if he was played slightly differently by Lampard? Possibly, but I can only judge him on what he played as. That doesn't mean I don't rate Kante, but if Lampard is going to keep using him like that, to be honest, I don't really see the point. But yeah, that's it for Kante, 6 out of 10 overall for the season. Coming to Ross Barkley, 20 appearances all season, 7 coming from the bench with 3 goals and 4 assists. For me, gets a 5 out of 10 rating for the season. Before his recent run of 4, I would have given him like a 3.5 or a 4 because I thought it was shocking. Had a couple of scandals almost as well, being out drinking in Dubai and, the whole chip cab gate that he had, and clearly wasn't in favour with Frank Lampard, but fought himself back into the team and had some decent performances, especially very recently that absolute blinder of a solo goal against Liverpool as well in the FA Cup. Gives him a 5 out of 10 overall. Maybe I should still keep it down to a 4.5. Coming to Mason Mount, 41 appearances all season. 10 of them coming from the bench, but still 41 appearances all season, and a lot of those with a minor injury and carrying that injury, that ankle injury he picked up against Valencia in the Champions League. But 6 goals and 5 assists, and for me gets a 6.5 rating for the season. 6.5 out of 10. Considered giving him a 7, but I thought he wasn't quite as good as Jorginho overall. But still 6.5. Some people probably say I'm crazy giving him that high of a rating, but in my opinion, he's very underrated, and his value to the team is very high. It's just as simple as that. I think his pressing ability is remarkable, and yes, I know he needs to work on a couple of things and decision making, and his finishing at sometimes was just really poor. He hadn't scored for ages before he scored recently against Everton. So, that was a little bit of a problem, but still, we always have to remember it was his rookie Premier League season. He's 20, 21 years of age. You can't expect absolute blinders from these players just because they had a good first month or month and a half of the season. you can't just expect that all season long. And I still think overall he had a good season. He had a good season, and I'm excited to see what else we get to see from him in the future. And then coming to Mateo Kovacic, 37 appearances all season, 8 of them coming from the bench, just 2 goals and 3 assists. But in my opinion, clearly our player of the year, clearly the Chelsea player of the year, and I'm giving him a 9 out of 10 rating for the season. He was just by far our best player all season. That game against Bayern Munich, even Lampard said it after the game, he was the only one that seemed like he was in the right place. He was good enough to be in that game. And that's was what it was like with him for most of the season. There was this game, for example, away at Brighton on New Year's Day, I think it might have been, where he was poor. But other than that, I can barely remember Kovacic not being at least good. And there were so many games in there where I was like, he was outstanding. He was absolutely outstanding. So, in my opinion, player of the year, a 9 out of 10 rating for the season. Then I'm also going to touch on Billy Gilmour quickly. Only 7 appearances, 3 starts, 0 goals, 0 assists. And gets an 8 out of 10 rating. But that's kind of a standalone rating that you can't really compare with the others because he just played too few games. But his last 2 performances against Everton, Liverpool were, of course, absolutely incredible. And then, just to mention him, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, what a poor guy. Didn't even get to play a single second of professional football this season. You're now coming to the wingers. And starting off with Willian. Again, 37 appearances, 9 of those coming from the bench. 7 goals and 6 assists. And overall, get a 6.5 out of 10 rating from me. It would be a 6 out of 10. But that Spurs away performance gives him that extra 0.5 because, you know, it's Spurs away. He scored 2 goals. Brilliant. What can I really say? I know a lot of you will say that's too good, but I think sometimes people are harsh on him. And I know he doesn't score enough goals. And I know that's been a general problem with him over his entire Chelsea career. But I still think sometimes people were harsh. I think people sometimes undervalue his contribution. Sometimes it was also teammates not making the best use of, you know, some of the things that he does in games. I think 6.5 is fair. In my opinion, it's still me making this video. If you disagree, again, let me know in the comment section below, but that's what I'm going to go with. Coming to Pedro, 18 appearances only this season, 5 of them coming from the bench, 2 goals and 3 assists. From me, he gets only a 4.5 out of 10 this season. Almost gave him a 5 for sentimental reasons because, you know, it very much looks like he's leaving, but hard work isn't everything, hence why I didn't give him that 5 out of 10 because whenever he did play early in the season, he was shocking. Last couple of games were good and he's really hard working. He's a leader. He's a role model of a professional. But still, his performances this season weren't that good. But still, absolutely nothing but respect for Pedro because, you know, even though he barely played all season, you know, you never heard any moaning from him. But then coming to the new boy, Christian Pulisic, 23 appearances all season, 5 of those coming from the bench, 6 goals and 6 assists. And from me, it gets a 7.5 rating, 7.5 out of 10 rating for the season. It's his debut season in the Premier League. Yes, he had a slow start, you know, was kind of kept out of the team by Frank Lampard a little bit, and then was injured for ages lately. But for at least a month or so in like autumn or between autumn and winter, he was our best player. You know, he was brilliant. You know, he scored a hat-trick away at Burnley, and that was just a lot of brilliant games. And I think we would have had slightly better results had he not been injured recently because he's that winger with the most goal threat. He's that winger with the most directness at the far post because we have so many crosses fizzing into there and we just don't make enough use of it. And he would have been that guy, so 7.5 out of 10 from me for the season. Then coming to Callum Hudson-Odoi, 25 appearances actually all season, which surprised me when I looked up those stats, but 13 of those coming from the bench, 3 goals and 5 assists, and for me gets a 5.5 rating, 5.5 out of 10 rating for the season. Very good straight after his comeback. Of course, he had that comeback and the, you know, torn Achilles, and they kept him out at the start of the season, and he was brilliant when he came back. You know, got like 3 or 4 assists in like 3 or 4 games on the bounce, but then had loads of injuries, had 2 or 3 hamstring problems, and also had a few poor performances. And this is not necessarily criticism of him because this is something you have to expect when someone had such a bad and long-term injury. But I still have to, you know, rate his actual performances. And I can't just, you know, give him extra points because I expect it because of the injury. But this is no criticism of him at all. And I just hope he can come back even stronger and better next season or whenever the season, you know, I guess is recontinued. But then coming to the strikers and have to start it off with Tammy Abraham. 34 appearances all season, 5 of those coming from the bench, 15 goals, 13 of those in the Premier League. Also, alongside there with 6 assists, but actually also 2 own goals. And for me, gets an overall rating of 7 out of 10. 9 out of 10 early on in the season when he scored like pretty much every game. He scored a hat-trick and a brace now and again and whatever. It was brilliant. Even though the last few months were somewhere between a 4 and a 5 out of 10. But we would not be 4th in the table in the league right now without his goals. So I think anything lower than a 7 would be a disgrace to him, even if his recent performances haven't been exactly brilliant. And of course, he was also out injured ever since that Arsenal game. Coming to Olivier Giroud, 13 appearances only this season, 5 of those coming from the bench, 3 goals but 0 assists. For me, it gets a 4.5 rating out of 10 this season. Without the performances against Tottenham and Everton, I would have given him a 5, if not a 3.5. And it's difficult to judge him because he's not really played a lot. He's really not played a lot, and he was good against Tottenham, scored that crucial goal at the time. I don't know. I think 4.5 is fair. But like I said, it would be lower without those recent 2 performances, basically. And then coming to Michy Batshuayi, 24 appearances all season, but 19 from the bench, the guy with the most appearances from the bench. 6 goals and 2 assists, and also gets a 4.5 rating out of 10 from me. Awful when he starts games, pretty much always, but he did have a good, it was just a good super sub for a few weeks, before Christmas or just earlier in the season, with scoring a couple of important goals for us, including the one at Ajax. And let's not forget that if he doesn't score that goal, we don't even go through to the round of 16 of the Champions League. And I know we only played the first leg in that, but still, not qualifying for the round of 16, first of all, would have been an embarrassment, but also would have lost the club millions financially, millions and millions and millions. It's the difference between qualifying, coming third in the Champions League group stages and going to the Europa League, or finishing within the top 2 and qualifying for the round of 16. So that goal is very, very important, and has to raise his rating for the season by a bit. And then coming lastly to the manager, Mr. Frank Lampard. And he, from me, gets a 7 out of 10 all season. Some of you might actually be surprised at that, because I am quite critical of Frank Lampard, or have been quite critical of Frank Lampard at times. But that's looking at individual games and individual decisions. Overall, it was still his debut Premier League season. It was his debut Premier League season, and you have to take that into account when, judging and rating his performance or how he's done so far this season. The youth development has been crucial. Not only has Tammy Abraham scored 15 goals, not only was Mason Mount a very good of players, not only did Reece James come into the team, not only did we give so many debuts to so many players like Billy Gilmour or something, but also he increased the squad value massively, which is, a big deal for the club. And unlike Conte, Lampard also always beat Spurs, which I think is always brilliant. And also he was quite a lot let down by individual errors by players, both offensively and defensively. That just happened very often. Players missing absolute sitters, individual errors, at the back that cost us goals and cost us results. Would we have necessarily been any higher in the league? Maybe would have been third, but I don't think any better than that. But still, he was let down quite a few times. But still, as much as, there was praise in there, I still have to mention there were too many tactical errors in my opinion. All this 3-4-3 that, happened recently, it's just not good enough. Like the 3-4-3, except against Spurs and Wolves, don't do it. Don't do it. And it only works against Spurs because Mourinho is a mug and doesn't know how easy it is to play against it. He doesn't get it. That's my opinion. I know some of you disagree, but I think 3-4-3 is absolutely horrendous, especially when we don't have Kante. With Kante, it's a different topic. We can talk about it. But when you don't have Kante, playing Jorginho and Kovacic in a 3-4-3 is just mind-boggling to me. And that was too many tactical mistakes in there, and a couple of other mistakes in there as well. And also he was too slow with subs. People criticised Maurizio Sarri for this, but on average, Maurizio Sarri made his substitutions way earlier in every single game than Frank Lampard did. No one criticised Lampard for it, interestingly. And also he lost 3 times to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Man United. To be honest, I should kind of drop it from 7 to 6.5 out of 10 just for that, because that's quite embarrassing. But that was it. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate all of you guys that have tuned in. Like I said in the beginning, please be sure to download the OneFootball app via the link that is down in the description below. That'd be massively appreciated because it helps us out a lot. Subscribe to Blues Fans TV if you haven't already. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Check out my channel, my personal channel, to which the link is down in the description below. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, and I'll see you when I see you.